What would a draft haul look like if it included Bijan Robinson in round one to the Dallas Cowboys? All that and more. This episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your
Locked
daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast
Locked
Network, your
On.
team every day.
On. Locked on.
Cowboys.
Locked on. Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how's it going today, sir?
It's going well. We are, what is it, 4 weeks? I think I saw you tweet that.
Or a
earlier.
month. Or a month away. From
1
today.
month away from the NFL draft, NFL Christmas. So I'm excited about that. I'm certainly excited to talk about doing some mock drafts. It's that time of year, right? And you know, I think we should we'll come up with some interesting scenarios to kind of go through these and kind of see exactly what we have in store for us coming up in a month.
So I saw today for most sports books, Bijan Robinson is favored to go to the Dallas Cowboys, which is very interesting. We both have our own thoughts on what that would look like for the Cowboys, but today we wanted to run through a mock draft simulation where what would the draft look like for the Cowboys if they drafted Bijan Robinson at number 26? And hopefully, with the cooperation of our draft simulator here, that's going to be possible. So we're going to use Pro Football Focus's mock draft simulator, and we'll see if Bijan Robinson is available to the Cowboys and some of the other names. Let's go a little bit faster here. But all the typical names coming off the board, and of course, Bijan Robinson is gone. So let's just go ahead and assume that he's available. We're gonna call Bijan Jamar Gibbs in this case. Okay. If Bijan were to fall to pick 26, is that a pick that you are comfortable making?
Yeah, this is funny because you and I have actually not talked about this whole situation on the show. I think. I definitely prescribe to a lot of the kind of metric idea of drafting running backs in the first round, and there's obviously issues with with a value aspect, especially drafting high in the first round. As you start to move down towards the bottom half, I don't have that same aversion to drafting a running back in the back half of the first round, especially if you feel like he could give you solid play for the length of the contract, all 5 years. But I also think that, you are having to sacrifice an opportunity cost because ultimately you don't really want to sign a running back to a second contract. So I think I'm okay with it. But I think you need to go into it with eyes open that you're losing the kind of opportunity cost that you normally get with your first round picks of getting a superstar or a very good player for very cheap for a while, and that you're going to be paying a running back more than you probably would feel comfortable with anyways. And then on top of that, kind of potentially going into it knowing that you're going to get 5 years of this guy.
Yes. Now, you mentioned drafting a running back at 4 is so different than drafting a running back at 26 because when you're drafting at 4, you're passing up elite players at more important positions.
That's right.
It's not even a question. Now, when you're at 26, it's a little bit easier to digest because the guys that are going to be available in that spot probably aren't going to be elite players at elite positions, and the money is just a lot easier to digest. Yeah. I saw a post, I believe it was from Over the Cap the other day, that if Bijan Robinson is drafted inside the top 10, he would be the second highest paid running back in the NFL today. Wow. You're losing all value, right? You're drafting somebody at the very top of their value. But if he were to fall to, let's say, 26, Now that guy is getting paid like, I think the number is $4.5 million a year. And now you're talking about him being paid out to the top 20 running backs. It's just, that's so much more easily digestible. It just becomes, do you believe Bijan Robinson is the type of player that's worth drafting at 26 over players on our board right now? Kalijah Cansey, Dalton Kincaid, Will McDonald, Josh Downs, Mozzie Smith, Darnell Washington, Steve Avila. Like, in your mind, are you okay passing up those players for Bijan?
Yeah, and I guess that it's a draft by draft sort of situation, I would say, for me. But I mean, I think there are scenarios where, you know, Bijan Robinson is a blinking light that you're avoiding simply because he's a running back, you know. And I think that's here's my take generally about this for teams is that you got to build in positional value into your draft grade, and then don't double count it negatively when we get to the point, right? Like you include you mark Bijan Robinson. It's just like a negative mark, honestly, against his value. And if even with that negative mark on his value of being a running back, he's the highest rated player on your board when it comes.
Well, let me ask you this. In this case, Michael Mayer, the tight ends off the board, but both Dalton Kincaid and Darnell Washington are available. Would you have higher grades on those two guys than Bijan?
I don't think no, I don't have a higher grade as a player for Dalton Kincaid than Bijan Robinson. And I don't know that tight end is as much better than running back as far as positional value of drafting in the first round.
I was say, would you draft Darnell Washington over Bijan, or would you rather take Bijan's talent?
I would probably take Bijan, I think.
Okay.
But I think it would be close, honestly. And even with Dalton Kincaid, who I think, you know, has more value potentially, because of the receiving aspect, right? I think Bijan would be right there as well.
Okay. I think my problem with Bijan Robinson, we'll get to this rest of the draft in a little bit, is I just don't view him as a player. I'm not talking about value and where he should be drafted. I just don't know if I view him as this generational is too strong, but like this elite running back prospect, because I just saw too many games where they would play better competition like Alabama or TCU or Baylor from last year, and he got shut right down. And the argument I always hear, which is I think correct, well, the offensive line's not good. That's why Bijan didn't perform well. It's kind of the whole point of a running back, though, right? If you can get stifled against better teams because your offensive line isn't great, then why am I drafting you super high and calling you an elite prospect? That's my only big question.
Yeah, but I think also that's, again, kind of cooked into what's already there, right?
Sure.
Like it's already cooked into the positional value argument. So don't double count that necessarily.
Sure.
But I think it's a tough call.
Yeah. I view him more as the Josh Jacobs type of prospect, like a guy that deserves to go in round one. Let's just be clear. I think he is definitely a round one player, but I'm just not sure he's the Adrian Peterson level of prospect, or even like, you know, Darren McFadden or any of those type of guys. That's all.
I think he's better than Darren McFadden. I think he's not Adrian Peterson. You know,
is he better than Zeke as a prospect in your mind?
No, but
that's
as a prospect, right?
Yeah, and that's the part that I'm dealing with, because I actually think he's better than Leonard Fournette, but I also thought Leonard Fournette was a reject for. So it's just running backs, man. They're tough to figure out.
He's I would call him a rare talent. I mean, he has a size profile with his ability to change direction and just make people miss. That's pretty rare. Like, you just don't see guys move like that. So I would say he's not quite what we would normally call generational, right? Like the Adrian Peterson. I'm trying to think of who else would be kind of fall. I mean, honestly, I think generational to me is still Adrian Peterson. That's
the name that comes to mind for me.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, he's the guy that, like, you feel like could have played NFL in high school. So
all right, let's see what the rest of the draft looks like now that we've secured Gibbs/Bijan Robinson at pick number 26. Next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The tournament is heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now, FanDuel gives its customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That is $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything and anything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net at the end of the tournament, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. All right, Landon, we're here on day 2 of the NFL draft. A lot of interesting names available. I see your guy, Tank Dell, sit there. But here's the top receivers available. Tank Dell, Michael Wilson, A.T. Perry, Rashee Rice, Jaden Reed, Marvin Mims, who we know the Cowboys like a little bit. We can run through tight ends. A lot of them came off the board, but you still have Tucker Kraft, Luke Schoonmaker. Offensive line, this is where it gets a little bit tough. Luke Whipple from Ohio State is your only option, really.
Oh my God, Tippmann got taken right before us. That's terrible news. That's an actual pin throw.
Yeah. Matthew Bergeron, Cody Mock, Blake Freeland. I don't know if that's a spot where you want to be taking an offensive lineman. Let's go back to defense. Cornerback. We've got Julius Brents from Kansas State, Darius Rush, Eli Ricks. You're not going to be drafted in the second round. Sorry, buddy.
No.
But any other positions or players that are interesting to you?
No, not. It's why I hate 58, man. It's a wasteland. To me, the names that are sticking out are, maybe Benton. You scroll up a little bit if you could.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe Benton. We looked at obviously the name that's really sticking out is Tank Dell. Just because we know that he's eligible for us to take now.
That feels high to me. I'll be honest. 58 still feels high for a 5'8" receiver.
I also like Luke Weipler a little bit. I like him a lot, but I don't like him as much as I liked Tippmann. But I think he's fine.
It's just not a great spot to draft.
It's not a great spot,
And this is one of the reasons, though, why I am kind of against drafting a running back at 26 is if I can have Zach Charbonnet in the second round. Let's just go back up for a second. Here's some of the players that were drafted after we took Bijan Robinson at 26. Kalijah Cansey, Dalton Kincaid, Darnell Wright, Osiris Torrance, Keely Ringo, Mozzie Smith, Will McDonald. Like, I would rather have any of those guys with Charbonnet rather than Bijan and then pick your player. Benton, Julius Brents.
Anybody. I think that's fair, and honestly, I think trying to find a way out of 58 is another thing that I think the Cowboys should consider. I mean, we'll see how the draft actually plays out, but just based on everything that we've done, 58 has just been a nightmare. So
do you want to take our corner, Julius Brents, now?
I guess so. I mean, I don't really see much else that's like terribly appealing. You can wait on wide receiver, it feels like, because even if you don't get Dell, you could probably get Michael Wilson if you wanted to.
I mean, it's just not great. It's one of my problems again with drafting a running back at 26 is the sequencing. I don't know if it's going to line up for you, right? It just feels like this draft plays so much better if you get your tight end in round 1, you get an edge rusher or in round 1 or something else, because the rest of this draft is not great. We're here at pick 90 and a lot of the same options. Your guy, Michael Wilson, still there. Kendre Miller, running back that we both liked a little bit. Tajay Spears, Deuce Vaughn. Anybody here that's appealing to you?
Well, in this draft, we're not looking for running backs. So, but yeah,
we already got one.
The point is that like there's tons available here in the third round if you want to wait there. I would say in this case, we should probably go for either Michael Wilson or
we'll pull up the receivers.
Yeah,
The top receivers: Michael Wilson, Parker Washington, Keyshawn Boutte, Jaden Reed, Trey Palmer.
I mean, you just wish that guys like Keyshawn Boutte and Jaden Reed had better draft processes that would make you feel more comfortable about what you saw, especially Keyshawn Boutte, who's just, I mean, I don't even know why we're still talking about him at this point. Trey Parker is another guy that a little bit further down that you like, down the road, but I mean, Wilson's probably the guy I would take because I like him, but I don't love taking him at 90. Yeah.
No.
But what else is there? Like I think Carl Brooks is that kid from was it Bowling Green? I think.
Yep.
They list him as an edge, but I think he's more of a 3 technique. So if you're looking for a pass rushing defensive tackle, he could be that. But I mean, there's not like something that really gets your blood going at this here either.
And this is why, Landon, you and I have already advocated that we love the Cowboys to move up from 50 and use their 3rd round pick just to go up as high as you can, because we don't love any of the options here unless you're drafting a running back, because running back is the only position here where I still feel like there's good value.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Bigsby, Miller, Spears, Vaughn, Roshan Johnson, Dwayne McBride. Like, there's a lot of talented running backs here, but you kind of feel like you're wiped out at every other position.
Yeah, agreed. It feels like the middle class of this draft is very specific to a couple of positions, and if you're not drafting in that position group, you could be kind of really reaching at some of these spots, especially in the day 2 pick area.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. You want to take a receiver here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I Michael Wilson might be the best prospect here. Like that's what's kind of about it.
Right, let's take Michael Wilson then. So far our draft is we've got Bijan Robinson with our first pick. Our second pick we didn't love, but it's Julius Brents. You're gambling on another long cornerback, and then in round 3 we take Michael Wilson, a guy who's missed a ton of time at wide receiver over the last 3 or 4 years. Not great, but let's finish out the 4th and 5th rounds when we get back. All right, Landon, we're here to finish out rounds 4 and 5, just to kind of see how it goes. I kind of think for me, round 4 is where the Cowboys are going to be looking at drafting a quarterback. What are the other positions of need you could see them drafting?
Well, I don't know if Kobe Turner really falls the 4th round or not. If he does, the Cowboys should consider him because there is a need there at defensive tackle. I think he fits what they want to do a little bit. He's kind of a Osa type player, right? It's penetrating 3 technique type. He's got some good athleticism with on him. He's I think pretty sure he was on Bruce Feldman's freak list if I remember correctly. So I like the idea of taking Kobe Turner and then seeing what's there in the 5th round. But I don't disagree with your overall premise that 4th and 5th round is where my quarterback antenna starts to stand up. If I don't find somebody that's like a kind of a blinking light for me in the 4th round, I'll usually pull the trigger on an Aiden. I keep calling him Aiden O'Quinn. Aiden O'Quinn. But yes, Aiden O'Connell. And if not, then usually you take someone that's fallen and then just wait to the 5th round. And by that time you have a choice usually between Clayton Tune, Hecker. Sometimes you get lucky and O'Connell will fall that far.
Let's skip quarterback because let's say the Cowboys are feeling risky. They want to see if a quarterback falls to them in the 5th round. What other positions are interesting to you? Like, do you think this is where they could look at a linebacker, and potentially try to upgrade that spot?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think. Look, I mean, just the way that this draft fell to me, I would take the defensive tackle just because he's there.
Sure.
But I do think. But generally speaking, let's take him. But just kind of generally speaking through the pick, I think this is a good spot for linebacker. This is a good spot for running back if you haven't gotten your running back yet.
And we know that Dallas loves to draft linebackers on day 3. So that to me makes a lot of sense. You drafted 2 on day 3 last year, right? Devin Harper and Damone Clark. You drafted Jabril Cox in the year before that. Just seems like they feel like they can get some athletes there that could help out on special teams and maybe help more down the line.
Yeah, and I think that's right around like I think you were just tweeting about it on about how off-ball linebackers in the 1st round are high bust rate, and I think in general you're getting the kind of right amount of risk versus reward in the fourth round with these linebackers. You're usually getting pretty good athletes. They usually have one aspect of their game that may not be complete, but they're off-ball linebackers, so there are definitely ways to kind of work around that. And even if they can't play defense right away as like a starter, you're going to get a good amount of usefulness simply in special teams.
All right, so we're here at pick 169, the last pick that we're going to do here. All the quarterbacks still available: Aiden O'Connell, Stenson Bennett, Clayton Tune, Jaron Hall, Max Duggan, if you like him. I kind of feel like this is going to be the sweet spot to draft a quarterback. I feel like this is where you'll start seeing the toolsy guys come off the board.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, we're going to talk about two things here: what we think the Cowboys will do, and what I would do, or what you would do, right? If it's the Cowboys, I would say they probably draft an Aiden O'Connell, a Clayton Tune in the fifth round, and that's their developmental guy. If you're asking me, I'm waiting until the sixth round, and I'm taking Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and I'm developing a toolsy guy who can do a little bit more than the rest of these guys. I'm a big fan of his game. I listen. It's not just because I live in LA and I live very close to where they play football. Sure. I have truly fallen in love with the UCLA offensive unit from last year. There was just 4 or 5 players on that team that I really loved. But watching Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he has 3 years worth of experience and has some athleticism. So he's just another guy to consider later on down the road. But Aiden O'Connell to me seems like the kind of mixture of what the Cowboys like, good value at this point, right?
It seems very much like the type of quarterback that Mike McCarthy likes to have in his stable as a QB3 that could potentially develop into a high-end backup. But I agree with you. If DTR is going to be available in the 5th or 6th round, like give me him all day, because I think he can also help you out in so many other ways during the week of practice, right? If you're going up against a Lamar Jackson style quarterback, he can help you prep for that. If you want somebody that you're getting ready to play Jalen Hurts, he can help you work on some of the RPO stuff on top of still being a pretty good backup. So I'm with you there, but I still think Aiden O'Connell is the most likely quarterback to end up being the Cowboys backup here. So we just finished our 5-round mock draft. Full results here coming up in a second. Remember, we took Bijan Robinson in round 1, not Gibbs. Just ignore that. Julius Brents in round 2. Michael Wilson, wide receiver from Stanford in round 3. Kobe Turner in round 4. And then Aiden O'Connell in round 5. What are your thoughts, Landon?
Well, it's not quite the haul that you would have expected. There are some good names here. But you definitely feel like your 2nd and 3rd round picks were guys that you would love to get around later, that you would love to get a steal. You'd love to steal Brents at 90 and then steal Wilson at 129, 100%. As opposed to, reaching slightly for both of these 2 spots. But I like the names. I mean, I like Robinson and obviously Brents is a guy that we enjoyed. Wilson, I think, is going to be the kind of wide receiver that is going to be a valuable piece of the room because he does all the rest of the things that you want a wide receiver to do. I think Kobe Turner is a guy that even as a 4th round pick can come in and give you some help right away in the pass rush. And O'Connell would be a guy that would be the 3rd quarterback, I imagine, to start things out and then slowly make his way to the backup as the season went on. So it's a good haul. It's probably a player or 2 shorter than where you would want to be, right? Yep. And then on top of that, there's some value questions really at the top 3 picks. I mean, you could say what you want about Robinson, but there's going to be some questions about taking a running back at 26.
It feels like a very realistic haul if you do decide to draft a running back at 26, right? Because you're just not going to get value at tight end, which is a position of need, regardless of what you think of Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot. Those guys probably aren't going to fall to 58. There's probably not going to be a receiver available there that you absolutely love. And I got to believe, the top probably 3 interior offensive linemen are all going to be off the board. A lot of your top corners. So if the Cowboys decide to go with a running back at 26, I think this is the type of draft that you could expect.
And we got to say, I mean, just because it's worth pointing out is the opportunity to draft an interior offensive lineman. And look, we maybe could have taken someone like Zavala in the fourth round or something like that.
State. Yep.
But the fact that we weren't able to get an interior offensive lineman means that if we got out of the draft with this haul, there probably would be some scrambling to be done. I mean, I think they would say that Chuma Adoba would be their kind of starting left guard at this point, but
a little scary.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary. So there are consequences to drafting, a running back that early that aren't just involved in positional value and drafting. It's when we talked about opportunity cost loss, with the first round pick, you also lose the opportunity to tap into that running back value that you would everyone gets the opportunity to at fourth and fifth round, where you can get a starter in the fourth round.
And that's the thing that you learn when you do these. It's just, as much as you might love Bijan Robinson at 26, you love the fact that you can get a Tajay Spears at pick 129 and feel like, hey, I got a potential starting running back here in the fourth round, and I was able to add 3 other players to my defense with my first 3 picks. So
and I would add for the Cowboys specifically, I mean, like, let's say that you view that Tajay is like 75% Bijan Robinson, right? You already also have Pollard in the backfield, so like even then you've got kind of a built-in limiter at this point for your first round pick. Yeah, I mean, the more I think that's the thing, right? Is that I don't necessarily have a overall problem with drafting Bijan Robinson there as a philosophy, but the specifics of the situation, including the current running back room, the availability and the depth of the draft, and the opportunity, like I said, the opportunity cost of being able to draft a starter level player all the way down in the 4th or 5th round. Those are all things that kind of add up to a not quite as appetizing choice of drafting Bijan or Gibbs in the first.
Or Gibbs, yep.
Yeah.
That is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL Scouting Show with the Draft Dudes. From free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and more. Join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Go check out our podcast on YouTube. You can see the full simulator up there. Really, really easy to see. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you guys right back here tomorrow as we answer your Twitter questions. Have a fantastic day, everybody.